My teammate turned to my coach in the middle of the game. Why don't you get in here and let's see if you can do better than us? Those were his last words before he was cut off from the team. Our coach was a good man, but come game time, you will see him scream at us from the sidelines, criticizing our every move. That was perhaps why my teammate did what he did. Now, just to make sure we have no reason to do to God what my teammate did to my coach, Jesus not only instructed us what to do, He did it Himself. In the Gospel, Jesus showed the apostles how much we should serve and love one another. Taking a towel and a basin of water, Jesus washed the feet of His disciples, and it was no easy task. Their feet may have smelled worse than a garbage heap. Their feet may have been covered with dust. Remember that during those days, they only wore sandals on roads that were not cemented. And Jesus may have been exhausted after a long day. He may not even have the strength to wash His own feet. Do you know what? It was precisely why Jesus did what He did, to show us that the kind of love He requires is not easy. But He isn't like a coach who whimpers and hollers from the sidelines. He entered the game. He messed it up with us. He got His hands dirty, literally, and their feet wet. He took the hits of life and felt what it means to love and hurt. In the letter to the Hebrews, it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin." And He did it all so we would know that it is possible to love the way He does. Humbly, generously, consistently, and unconditionally. He did it so we won't have any reason not to love. He asked, "Do you understand what I have done to you?" Because perhaps it was so obvious to Him that the apostles didn't. All they saw was the act of washing, but not the implications of it to their lives. They didn't realize then that Jesus wasn't just after cleaning their feet. He was more after teaching them a lesson, the lesson of unconditional love. Why unconditional love? Well, pause for a while and recall the kind of men whose feet Jesus washed on that first Holy Thursday. Definitely not men who were loyal to the end. That afternoon, He held in His hands feet which were going to run in fear to every direction after His arrest. That day, He served men who were going to desert Him at His most difficult moment. John and the rest of the apostles will abandon Him later. Peter will deny Him 3 times. And Judas? Yes, Jesus washed his feet too. It must have been difficult for Jesus to wash the feet of people whom He knew would most likely desert Him at His darkest hour. And that is why it was a great demonstration of perfect love and service. He loved even those who do not deserve to be loved. That is why they didn't understand it then. That was why they didn't realize the significance of what Jesus did. They didn't know that Jesus was washing the feet of men who would later abandon Him. The betrayal, the denial, and the rejection haven't taken place yet. But Jesus, who knew His disciples more than anyone else, was aware that in all likelihood, they will falter and they will fail. Today, I exhort you to take a closer look at how you love. Do you love conveniently? Do you only love your friends but not your enemies? Have you forgiven that person who has betrayed you some time ago? Are you selective in your service to God and others? I'm a full-time preacher. My main source of income is derived from my preaching engagements. I preach at groups who pay and those that pay in kind. Sometimes they pay with very kind words. And there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I always remind myself that I should not let a stipend or the lack of it prevent me from preaching God's word. But I am ashamed to say that there are times when I find myself unconsciously favoring a paid preaching engagement over a free one. Often, it is reflected in the amount of preparation I give to it. Some people say it's normal. I say it shouldn't be. Some would argue that it is just part of business. I would say that it is true if preaching is a business and not a ministry. Today, I take the words of Jesus to love and serve the way He does, unconditionally, to give even if it hurts, to serve even if it drains, to offer even if it is exhausting, and to love without anything in return. And I learned these lessons from no less than the Master Himself, the Master called Jesus, the Master called love.